Debbie's Back Porch. Tonight we're going to make stuffed chicken breast. It's not quite Thanksgiving yet, but I'm craving a little dressing. And I save my cornbread anytime we have any left over and keep it in the freezer so that when I want to make cornbread dressing I can. So we're going to put together just a dinner for two, which would be stuffed chicken breast. And I have a sweet potato cobbler in the oven because I am trying to get into the Thanksgiving mood. So let me show you how we do it. We'll start with the dressing, with the stuffing. I have in this little cast iron skillet about a tablespoonful of butter. And I'm just going to add the ingredients, which is about a half cup of finely chopped mushrooms, about a tablespoonful of finely chopped bell pepper, about a quarter cup of finely chopped green pepper, and about a tablespoonful of finely chopped celery. These are probably the things that you put in your stuffing for your turkey. It's about what I put in my stuffing for my turkey. So what we're making here is cornbread dressing. My goal is for two, but I'll have more than enough. It's just hard for me to make less than this. And I'm just going to let those sizzle. As they're sizzling, I have here a tablespoon of rubbed sage. Now, it's very puffy. It really is about a tablespoonful. This is sage from my garden that I cut and dried in a brown paper bag. And you can still smell the wonderful sage smell to it. I prefer it to sage that you buy in the store. And I have a sage plant that won't die. Quick story. About 6 or 7 years ago I bought a sage plant and I planted it in one spot in the garden and it stayed there for 1 year. And Fred wanted to do something different, so he picked it up, pulled it up, and moved it to another part of the garden. And it just did fine. It stayed there for about another 2 years until he decided that he wanted to change the beds around again. And that we just needed to start over with a new sage. So he pulled that sage up and just threw it out in the backyard. And it just laid there for months. And then it started blooming, just laying on the ground. So he looked at it and said anything that wanted to live that much needed to have its own place. So he built a bed just for sage, and now it gets 8 feet tall. I get all the sage I want off of it. I cut it back before spring and it blooms again. So it is hardy, you can't kill it. I'm going to add just a few little sprigs of fresh rosemary. I love the flavor that rosemary gives to things. I don't like it so much dried, but I have rosemary about 10 months out of the year because it's another one of those herbs that just won't die. So, this is nice and sizzly. And since this is a cornbread dressing, I have here about a cup of cornbread that I took out of the freezer. It's cornbread we made weeks ago and put the leftovers in the freezer. And I'm going to crumble it in and leave some chunks. Now, if you don't want to use cornbread, you can certainly use breadcrumbs, stuffing mix, whatever you want to use. I love cornbread dressing, and I I never throw it away. If there's any left over, I always put it in the freezer because there's always something else to do with it. So this is very, very dry, and I'm going to add a little of my turkey bone broth. But I want to make it stiff enough that I can make it into a shape and stuff the turkey with, stuff the chicken breast with. So I can't tell you how much. It depends on what kind of bread you're using. Well, no doubt about this being sealed. Okay, let that go. This is some of my Tatler lids too, by the way. Or one of them. So you're just going to have to gauge it. I'm going to pour in, it probably won't take more than a couple ounces. But I like for it to sit here and toast all together, which means I'll have to let it cool off just a little bit more, before I can actually stuff it. And I think we've got a good consistency there. If you see, it'll stand up and hold its shape. So I can make a stuffing out of that. You don't want your stuffing to be dry, but I want it to stay together. I'm going to let that sit there and sizzle for a minute. Oh, and as usual, salt and pepper to taste, which is usually not a whole lot because there is salt in the cornbread. And black pepper if you want it. Okay, while that sizzles, we'll go to the next step. I have here one of my favorite kitchen toys. They're boats. I don't actually think you can call them ramekins. Maybe they call them ramekins. I don't know. But I use them a lot. They're great for individual servings. But you don't have to have these. If you just have a Pyrex dish or a cast iron skillet, whatever, you can put these in it. I just like to use these boats. What I have here is a tablespoonful of melted butter with just a tiny little bit of curry powder in it. Not a whole lot, enough to add a little color and just a little flavor. And I am painting the bottom of my boats. And this is just to keep the chicken from sticking. And I'll move them to the side. So to stuff these pretty chicken breasts, what I do is find the larger side and go from the other side. You need a sharp knife, and up about a ½ inch, I just start to butterfly it. Don't cut all the way through. You cut so that you can open it up. This is a large one. So that's butterflied. Look at this one. Here is the larger side. Here is the smaller. It's hard to tell on this one. It's pretty small. I had it backwards. We're going to cut this one this way. Just about halfway through the depth this way. And cut it almost to the other edge, but not quite. And cut the end. And butterfly. Now, I'm going to turn the stuffing off. I'm going to let it cool down just a little bit so that I can handle it to stuff it. Inside, I'm going to brush these chicken breasts again with the same butter. And a little bit of curry. And I'm going to salt them on the inside. And while my stuffing cools off, I'm going to leave you for just a minute. It'll take about a minute for it to be cool enough to handle. I'll be right back. I'm back. I just took a sweet potato cobbler out of the oven, and that'll be our dessert. Maybe cooled off enough by then to eat. Okay, we're ready to stuff. I'm going to tell you, you'll be happy that you let the bread brown in with the veggies. It gives it a whole lot more flavor. And it's still pretty hot. So what I'm going to do is split this in half. Split the dressing in half, the stuffing. Put it on one side. And fold it over. And this one's hard to fold because, gosh, it's a big old chicken breast. It'll actually probably have to cook a little longer than the other one. And I put it in my boat. And then we'll do the other. Okay, that was about the right amount for 2. If you want to make this for 4 or 6, then you know, just double or triple. And fold it. Now, I don't sew this together. I'm not making a roll where I'm going to slice it. It's going to cook just like this. And some of the dressing will tumble out and get more toasty. And it will be yummy. Now, I still have my butter with just a tiny little bit of curry powder. So the spices we have in this, besides the salt and pepper, are rosemary and sage and a little bit of curry. I'm going to bake this for 30 minutes on 350, and we'll come back. Well, here we go. Baked chicken breast. It smells wonderful, and all that's left to do is to garnish it. And I know with stuffing, you think of dressing. You think of cranberry sauce. But, you know, I don't want to open up a cranberry sauce. So think about some of your wonderful jams and jellies that you've made. This is spiced apples, a citrus marmalade, some of your chutneys, just a taste of sweet with your dressing. Use your imagination and enjoy. Thank you for joining us on Debbie's Back Porch for stuffed chicken breast. We'll see you later.